Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the second season of Coffee Can't Fix Everything, a show where we talk about mental health over a cup of coffee. And I got my first guest for the second season. Um, I've been super excited with them on the first season, but after talking through, I was just stupid and didn't think about who I should connect with. But you know when we first met?
Oh, I think we've gotten to cross paths so many times. I mean,
We have. So I first met you through DMU, and we were on a panel together.
oh yeah.
Yes, for I think it was like their culturally responsive class or something like that.
Yes, yeah, I
And
remember.
and like you can just tell your passion for the work that you do in the community that you serve, undeniable. Max, thank you so much for being here.
Oh yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I mean, it's so wonderful to be able to chat about this work, and as you saw, and I continue to feel like the job that I get to do, both in my professional life and beyond, is just a dream every day. So I'm really
Yeah.
grateful anytime I get to chat with other folks that live that way too.
That's so cool. I really appreciate that. And today I was telling you earlier, so I've I've been wanting to get into therapy for the longest time. And I almost felt like a hypocrite in a way because I've been a part of these mental health committees and a part of these programs, and people were seeing me as like this mental health leader and advocate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not me. I'm not that guy. I know. Go holler at Kayla. That's the
Yes.
Go
Big
holler
shout
at
out to Kayla.
yes, shout out quick.
Yeah.
Kayla. She is that person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I had to accept that, people see me in that light, which is fine. But I wasn't doing what I was telling people they should do. After every episode, I'm telling people, hey, if you need help, go seek help. Here are some links.
Yeah.
And I'm facing a lot of anxieties, a lot of new levels, and you know what I mean. And I was like, I keep talking about, I should see a therapist, but the idea of asking for help was it was really, really uncomfortable for me.
Oh, yeah.
And then, great friend of mine who has been an advocate for mental health therapy for years was like, hey, I found somebody. You need to speak to them because your life is getting crazy.
Yeah.
Get to them now, right, before it gets too crazy.
Yeah.
And I really love that. And so I'm excited about this new journey I'm going to be going through
Yeah.
with my own therapist. And it got me thinking, why is it so hard to ask for help? So I would love for you, was it ever hard for you to ask for help in any way, shape, or form?
It absolutely is. I mean, I think for me, I have been a person that's seen a therapist for a lot of my life. I started seeing a therapist when I was really, really young. And what was interesting about that was that it was something that my family members decided was best for me. It didn't ever feel self-motivated until I was an adult.
Oh, right.
And so now I have had the same therapist now for 8 years, ever since I moved back to Des Moines. And for me, asking for help when it came to my mental health was a matter of survival. I knew that I had some pretty intense mental illnesses that needed support. I am now almost 5 years sober as a result. And so
congratulations.
for me, it went from mental health is something I had to do because other people were concerned about me, to something that I wanted to do to take care of myself and to honor myself. And so that the kind of process of getting access to mental health care as an adult has been really fruitful for me and really beautiful too.
Right. Do you feel that's awesome. Congratulations on this, everything. That is beautiful. Do you feel and I've asked this to somebody else too earlier in the show, when you see somebody struggling and they're afraid to ask for help, can you see it on them? They maybe do need help, and for me as my personality, I'm a fixer. I want to help. I want to help, help,
yeah.
help. And like I can see it on somebody and be like, let me fix you, let me help you.
Yeah,
But also I'll
yeah.
be like, it has to be on their terms.
Yes, yeah. I see this actually a lot in my work with LGBTQ folks. And one of the things that I get to do a lot in my job, so in addition to my work at One Iowa, oh my gosh, the fly hanging out. In addition to my work at One Iowa, where we're trying to get LGBTQ people with mental health care access,
Yeah.
I'm also a gender and transition doula. And I help people access gender-affirming care. One thing that's really surprising is that I think a lot of people that I get to work with, especially trans and non-binary people, they have to access mental health care sometimes as a way of getting the health care that they need,
Interesting.
so that they can get like the letter that they need to transition or access surgery. And so it's interesting because I'll often work with those folks and they're really, really timid about trying to reach out for any support, any gender affirming care, any medical care. And then when they realize that they'll also need to work with a mental health provider, that can be a huge barrier as well. So I actually really often see people at that point where they don't know where to go, they don't know how to ask for help. And also, in a state like Iowa, it's not safe for them to ask for help.
Word.
They don't know if that therapist is going to be safe, if their provider is going to be safe. And so one of the greatest like privileges I've had in this world is to try to pave paths so people can be safe and get the care that they need.
Yo, that is something that not a lot of people think about. Is you may have access to the care as far as having insurance or it being easily accessible to you, but is the provider that you're going to see, is it going to be someone that you feel trust with?
Yeah.
Right? Is there someone that you can feel confident with?
Yeah.
And understanding where we're at in our society right now, that fear of asking for help, knowing it's right there, but is it really there?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the same thing within the Black community. Like, there may be options for someone to seek mental health care.
Yeah.
But is that therapist going to understand me, my culture and how I talk and how I act and what triggers me and not trigger? Are they going to understand that? And that keeps a lot of people away. And that is a wrench in everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I wonder when individuals that need help, what is that process like? So from the work that you do, right? What is that process like how long does it take somebody to, when they realize, man, I need help, to actually reaching out?
This is a fun question. I really like that you asked this because it's not very straightforward, especially with LGBTQ folks. So often in the trainings that I'll provide to providers, or when I talk about like health equity in general, one of the things that I think a lot about is that a lot of LGBTQ people, especially trans folks, know that they need care or they know that they need a therapist. And they are so afraid to come out to even themselves, that we will often work with people who might be, younger or have sought mental health care for a lot of their life. But I also work with people who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, where they've had to put those parts of themselves away for so long because they didn't have the resources or safety or access to get that care. And so I do find that the numbers for how long it can take is so skewed in the community because people don't always have the ability to know who they are or to even conceive of the help they might need. They know something's wrong, they have some ideas, but our culture and society tells us to push those things down. Every system, in the United States tells you that being LGBTQ is wrong. And so many folks will email me for the first time ever, and they're like, I've never told anyone else that I'm LGBTQ. I'm in my 60s. What can I do? And for them, it could be decades. And for some of the middle and high schoolers I work with, it's been a couple weeks, and they're like, oh, shoot, I got to go in. So it really depends on the person.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, the mental torture of holding that in for decades.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what that feels like.
Yeah.
It's hard, but thinking, I get a lot of people who ask me, Corey, how can I be an ally to the Black community? And like for me, it's a great question, and I'm not saying I hear it a lot, so I laugh. I'm like, Lord Jesus, right? I get it a lot, but it's a really good question. I'm glad people ask it. But so here's my question too: how can someone like myself be an ally to someone in the LGBTQ plus community who maybe I may see that may need help? Now I know I have the privilege of having access to resources, mind you, right? So if I were to see someone and be like, and I can see it, I know who I can reach out to you. I can reach out to Kayla. I have people.
Oh yeah.
But there's not a lot of people who have those resources, but still want to be an ally and show their support. What does that look like from your perspective? What does that look like to show support for someone? And you want to be an ally, but you want to help as well, and you want to help. Lord Jesus.
I think this is such a good question, and I get it. I've gotten it throughout my time in LGBTQ advocacy, since I came out in high school. And one of the things that I think people don't realize is how powerful it is to just have one person in your life that doesn't treat you with stigma when it comes to your identities.
Talk about it.
That is so impactful. And in fact, anytime I work with a family or somebody comes to me and says like, oh, I have a trans kiddo in my family or my community, like, what can I do? I never feel like I'm doing enough. And I want to be able to like, you just like hold the person by the shoulders and say like, just the fact that you are safe and that you care about them, that's life-saving. Like that is suicide prevention, that is mental health care.
Word.
And so just knowing that like being a stigma-free voice, a person that's willing to support someone that's trying out new pronouns or a new name, taking them to a community resource or a pride festival, like that's so impactful. But of course, like you said, there's so many different amazing resources. And so I do think, in Iowa, we have One Iowa where I work, of course, but there's a lot of really amazing other organizations to get connected with. And so I would say like, if you're really at a loss, like reach out to us because we really do want to help.
Right.
Because you're not alone. And the fact that you're making this other person feel like they're not alone is incredible. Like, it's such a gift.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because one way, and hear me out here, this, for me, and I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing, but I think I had the same conversation with Kayla. But the way I wanted to, or way I see myself breaking that stigma and showing that, hey, you're my brother, you're my sister, whatever, is I don't want to be the guy that's the equivalent of the guy or girl or whoever saying like, hey, to me, like, hey, I have a Black friend. I like Black people, right? Mm-hmm. So I just treat everyone like I would treat anybody. In a way. I understand people are different, but I'm not going to approach you and be like, hey, Max, I'm cool. I know Kayla too. Kayla's and they're naming off all the people that I know that are in the community.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's just weird to me.
Like, yeah.
It's just weird. Like, so I like to do things subtly. I'll rock a pin. I have my mental health pin on today because coffee show. But
as you do,
I'll rock a pin. I'll rock an ally shirt just to let you know. But I don't want to like overly do it because it almost comes off as not genuine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. And honestly, anytime anyone brings up Kayla, I'm happy to, Kayla is on another level, just like a human, like wonderful human person. Yeah. But no, I get that. And I think it's a little bit of a like show, don't tell thing.
Yeah.
I understand the impulse there with a lot of people that I'll meet that are trying to get connected or be supportive. That's the first thing they'll do. They'll, say like, oh, I'm connected with this person or I've done this thing. And I really see that as like a bid for connection. But I agree. And perhaps I'm more used to that in my job, the more and more I work with allies in the community. But I do also think that, like, a way of showing and not telling is to, have your pronoun pin or have, like, a rainbow pin, but showing up when anti-LGBTQ legislation is being passed at the Capitol, attending prides, like being connected in the community, I think also shows people that you're out there. But I think, to your point, it can sometimes be hard to show somebody that you're really lovely and supportive without literally telling them. And it can even be down to, like, sharing your pronouns and opening the door for them to do the same. And anytime somebody is sharing their pronouns, even if they don't ask me what mine are, that shows me, like, oh, this person is thinking, they're paying attention, they want to treat me with respect. And so I think that there are those little things too. But I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I bring a lot up because I feel like it helps kind of tying it back to the original theme of the episode is I want people to know that, hey, I rock with you, because if you need help, you can come to me for help, right? And I feel like, every job I've had, just from my perspective, I try to look for the people that I think, okay, you rock with black people. So I know I can, you know what I mean? You just try to find those allies that you can lay your hair down with or you be comfortable around. So I think it's just important to be able to show people that you rock with them or that you love them in whatever way. But also I'm doing that because I know if you ever feel it without being like, hey, I know you're going through stuff, and they're like, bro, what are you talking? Like, just know you can come to me for help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think you're saying that, like, knowing who the allies are in your community, the people you can trust, like, that's a survival technique. Like, that's a thing in
I've been
Iowa.
Surviving out here, man.
Yes,
I'm trying.
I mean, we have to name that too. Like,
100%.
For Iowa, for a place that has anti-LGBTQ legislation, anti-immigrant legislation, we know that Iowa has sundown towns. Like, it's not enough to, wear a shirt or, try to tell people that you're an ally. You really do have to, like, live it and be a part of that.
100%.
Yeah, I think that we don't always grapple with that enough, and I think people kind of can, like, paint Iowa differently, or if you're, like, in Des Moines, think that that's the way that the rest of the state looks. And honestly, like, as we're seeing in Des Moines, we have huge issues with police violence, criminalizing homelessness, like all these different things. And so I really do think that, like, a part of asking for help and mental health in the state is, like, survival and knowing who those safe people are. So.
Can you talk about the differences? Are you from Des Moines originally?
I am, yeah.
You are? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just curious, and maybe you may know, of, like, I feel like, again, from the outside looking in, it feels like there are a lot of resources to ask for help here. Mm-hmm. But what about those people that are maybe in a smaller town that don't have access to easy access to get help?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what is that process like? And maybe, do you know what that feeling is like?
Yeah. I'm glad that you asked about this, because it's easy to find some pockets in the state where it can feel like there's resources. Mm-hmm. And even in Des Moines, there's not even, like, we haven't even reached the tip of the iceberg of all the access that we could have. But when I am working with someone from a very rural part of the state, one of the things that they come up against is that often in really, really small towns, like, everyone knows your car. Some of the trans and non-binary people I work with in deeply rural parts of the state are, like, they can't just go to Target and buy a piece of clothing that feels affirming to them, because everyone there, they probably have to drive some distance to the Target, but everyone there, like, kind of knows them, right? A lot of the time, what we look at when we look at food insecurity and food access is people needing to go to a food pantry in a different town because they're afraid of people seeing them in their own town. All these things intersect, right? And so one of the things that I'm thinking about with those folks is how to get them out of a place of isolation, even with that, like that one person that is affirming, that one person that is an ally. Can we just broaden their little circle a little bit so that they feel like there's someone alongside them as they're navigating those small town dynamics? But I think it's much more complicated because you might be in a town where everybody knows everybody's family, and and I've even seen that growing up in the very neighborhood that I now live in. People have known me in a variety of different names and pronouns and genders, and to see that in a space where you're even more isolated and there's more of a chance that the people around you are not affirming. I'm trying to help those folks broaden their circle and find just a little bit of support here and there first.
In this little bit of time that I've been talking to you, this sounds like a whole lot of work.
You are right. Yeah. I just had to sit with that for a second. Like, absolutely. Yes.
How, in this time and level in your career and the work you have now, in the work you see ahead of you, how do you ask for help?
I'm glad that you asked.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. Oh, dang. It's really hard. I mean, I am in a really busy season professionally as I've hopped into the role of executive director. I'm finishing out our program director work at One Iowa. I help run the Iowa Trans Mutual Aid Fund. We give people money for gender-affirming care, and I'm a gender and transition doula still, and this has been a really hard season to ask for help, because these are all things I want to be doing, and I think that's what a privilege, first of all, like a privilege and honor.
That's real.
Yeah, like that, I always have to stand in gratitude of that, and I wake up every day just like not believing it, but I think with that, it is really challenging to say, like, I need others, and when I'm having a hard time asking for help, I have to go back to my values, and my values are community, they're shared liberation, they're mutual aid. Like, how am I engaging in those values and, like, going to try to help everyone else if I'm not willing to receive that? And asking for help is a way of, like, living in those values.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of talk to myself about that.
Yeah.
Like, I have to give myself a pep talk about that, and realign.
Yeah, but I'm glad you said that because, for me, thinking of, I asked you that question, and I'm thinking, oh, how do I ask for help?
I was going to say, yeah, taking tips, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And, like, it's hard to think of asking for help when all the things you're doing, and I say you, I'm talking about me, are things that, like, I love.
Yes.
It gives, I'm just ready for it.
Oh my gosh.
So, but it also can be very, very stressful and draining too. So how do you ask for help when you're doing all the things that you asked for? You had on your goal, you had on your little sheet, I want to do this, this, and this, and now you're doing them. And then, like, to ask for help, it feels like, oh man, if I ask for help, am I failing?
Yeah.
You know, does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, am I failing now that I feel like I need help on all these things that I want to do?
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's going to be, currently it's going to be a mindset shift to, I'm not failing, I just need help. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me, and I think in going back to, like, alignment with values too, like, we are communal humans. Like, we're supposed to live in communities with each other and get support from each other, and capitalism, colonization, these large systems of oppression want us to be hyper individualistic. And so I have to remind myself that, like, you're doing a little bit of unlearning too, that like you're on your own, and if you can't do it all on your own, then you're a failure, because that's simply not the case. We know that, like, up until very, very recently in, like, the humankind, like, we've needed each other so deeply to raise each other, take care of each other, raise our children, like, and so I understand that, because I often will say, like, I'm really stressed out, but it was my idea. So I can't, like, I don't feel like I complain, but I know that, like, I'm so much of a better leader, doula, advocate, activist if I'm engaging with people about why that stuff is hard.
Yeah.
Because in that way, I'm helping that person, feel more secure in asking for help. I'm humanizing the struggle, and I'm moving away from this capitalist kind of mindset that you have to perform without error
Yo.
and individually and alone. And that's isolating.
That's,
And that's bad for your
yeah,
brain.
It's bad for your brain.
Yes.
And like, what's the saying? It takes a village, right? Well, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to be an adult too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I often say something that's really important to me is to talk about burnout as a communal issue. Because often it's like, oh, you're burnt out. How could you let this happen? You better take a bubble bath or something to fix that, and then you'll be back to normal. And like, I think burnout is actually like, it's a community issue. It's something we can get into together and we can get out of together. But that takes like talking to people about how you're struggling, where you need support. So yeah, but it's very easy to be like, oh dang, I'm failing.
It's very easy to feel like you're failing, and at the ripe old age of 40, I'm just now starting to feel comfortable asking for help. You know what I mean? And it was I think, and I'm just speaking from a black man's perspective who grew up in a black environment, not asking for help was almost a sign of masculinity. It was like, I'm doing it on my own. It was like a badge of honor, in a way. And like, talking about all the things I'm doing, and when someone says, so who's helping you? And I'm like, it's just me. And it's like, wow. It's like, yeah, it's just me. But inside I'm like, it's just me.
Oh yeah. No, that makes sense though. Absolutely. Like that, I can only imagine also how isolating that is.
Yo, yeah. So like, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the community that I have now.
Yeah.
Because that's really kind of helped soften my ideas over the past couple of years. This has taken years for me to get to this point.
Yeah.
But like, to your point about community, it took a different community that was like, hey, you need therapy or you need help, and it is okay.
Yeah.
And even around some of my friends now, and it still bugs me out that I'll have friends that'll be talking about, oh man, I just had therapy today, and they told me, and they're saying it in like such just like, it's just a casual way. It's like, bro, 5-10 years ago, no one, if I were to ask you, hey, where were you at the past hour? You would say something, I wouldn't rob the bank, some
Yeah.
anything to get you off the scent of therapy, right? And having those people around me has made it really easier for me to be like, you know what, I think I'm going to do this and it's going to be dope.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense too. Like, your experience makes me think a lot about how just like burnout is communal. Like, I think mental health really is.
100%.
And we're taking those cues from the people around us. And I think that's why so many mental health issues and resources have to be, based in someone's experience and their identities, And I think about that a lot when we talk about not only LGBTQ affirming providers, but providers that can work with folks of color, providers that can work with folks with disabilities, providers that can work with folks that are neurodivergent. Like, I think that that's also all really important, because often people feel like they need to silo themselves in like one experience, and in a place like Iowa sometimes it feels like you have to pick and choose, and I want to create a community where you don't have to. You can be seen in all those things too.
I want to chew on this communal burnout thing a little bit, because I love that, and I'm curious on like what would it look like to create something to where people can get together when that's happening. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say or what that would look like, but I love the idea of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what could it be? Just something like this, where take the camera out of the way, but Just people just coming together and just being able to just be themselves.
Yeah.
Or I'm curious about. I'm gonna chew on that a little bit. And maybe I'll have you back and we can just talk about communal burnout.
Yeah. I mean, I think that has been one of the cool things about one of the Iowa programs I get to work on, the LGBT Leadership Institute. It's how I've met so many people, but we dive into these issues. And in fact, the curriculum and the program, I've changed it a lot over the recent years to be better addressing these larger problems and to create more of a space for people to connect. Like I used to think like, oh, I have to fill all the time with speakers. And now so much of the time is just spent with people like being able to talk to each other. And although I don't know that that's like the solution to burnout necessarily, like
Right.
the thing that I think is really fruitful from that is that people have the time to just be and to talk about what's heavy for them. And I think that that's really meaningful, but we don't have enough spaces like that. You
We
know,
don't
like
have
this,
enough space.
honestly, you know.
I know we don't have enough spaces like that, and like for me, when I get into those spaces where there is like a time to like connect before like the main thing is, for me that's sometimes the best time.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I can just like no agenda. I can just say how I'm feeling, talk to like whomever, be there for somebody. They can be there for me,
Yeah.
and like that's almost the best time. And then when it's time for like the thing, it's like, oh man, this is over.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're so busy these days. It feels like we don't have time. This is a plug for the slow down. We don't have time to slow down.
Yeah.
I feel like that could be the best help. Just sit your ass down somewhere for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're so right, and I also think like when it comes to that kind of connecting, it's sad because as we know, like people are losing third spaces
Yeah.
in their community, and so many of the spaces that you can go that are not work or school or home are places you have to pay to be in.
Yeah.
Places that are increasingly less accessible to houseless people who also need that connection and that community because of the way, you know, them entering a business is looked at differently than myself, you know,
Right.
a housed person. And so there are so many ways that I think that like even libraries, support groups, you know, free programming that nonprofits do, for example, like I think that those places are all really important, but it's really sad that we've lost a lot of those as well. Because
That's real.
we
That's
need that
real.
time to connect, you know?
That's real. You know, Max, before I get you out of here, who spent a whole lot of time talking to you about help. If there is somebody listening, watching, and they haven't made that step to ask for help yet, what would you say to that person?
I have to think about this a little bit.
Yep, take your time. Magic of editing. No, everybody will think it just happened right away.
Perfect. So, I come from originally like very rural Midwest farming families, and even with my like close parents, I have seen what can happen when people feel that they have to go it alone and that they have to be so individual and that's a sign of honor. In those spaces, they didn't have access or even like lack of stigma around accessing care. So all of this is to say that one of the things I try to do when I'm up against asking someone for help or when I know that I have that friend that like really needs to reach out and ask but doesn't know how, I think that it's really important to remember that when you don't ask, when you don't tell people how you're struggling, the only one that suffers there is you. And that's not something that you can take with you. Like, that's not currency. That doesn't make you a better or more worthy person. You are worthy as you are, and you should access that community and that support as you are. And being miserable and isolated and alone is not your rent for being on this earth, you know? And I think a lot of people kind of work themselves, at least, you know, the farming families that I come from, like, they can work themselves into this corner that's like, if I ever need anything, if I ever feel like I'm burdening or draining people, like, oh, that's, you know, a mark against me. And I would just say, like, know that when you don't ask for help, when you don't reach out, like, you're not harming the people in your life, you're harming yourself. And often when I'm really, really struggling, the thing that I'll constantly say to myself is, when I don't ask the people in my life for help, I'm not giving them the happiness and joy that I get when I help other people. I'm taking that from them because I'm not giving them the opportunity to support me. So think about how much you, the person that is not ready to ask for help quite yet, think about how much you like to help your family member or community member, like how wonderful that feels that you can pour into that person. When you don't tell them that you need that back, you're not giving them that opportunity either. And that's just a shame. Like, you know, they want to support you just as much as you want to support them. So let them do that.
Yes. Oh, mic drop. But we're not going to drop these mics. So.
Oh my gosh. I'm just adding myself with that one, honestly. Oh.
Man, Max, thank you so much for being here. I truly, it was great to actually have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Longer than being on a panel or something like that. This was really, really cool. For those that are listening or watching that want to learn more about you, One Iowa, or the work that you do, where can they reach you?
Yeah, there are so many wonderful things I get to be a part of. So you can reach out and learn more about One Iowa. We're on Instagram, Facebook. OneIowa.org is our website. If you're interested in learning more about like my doula work, I'm Max the Doula. That's my handle on Instagram and Facebook. So especially if you're a trans person that needs support, please reach out. Ask for help.
Yes.
I would love to help you. It is such a joy. And then if you're interested in the Iowa Trans Mutual Aid Fund that I mentioned, that's Iowa Trans Mutual Aid Fund, or ITMAF, and we have a website as well as an Instagram too. So.
Perfect. Yeah. That was actually my therapist just calling me back.
Oh my gosh, amazing. They felt the message.
They felt the message. Awesome. Max, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody, thank you for listening to Coffee Can't Fix Everything. Like I say, I am not a mental health therapist. If you need help, there will be links to find services in the description of this episode. We want you here. I love you. So coffee can't fix everything, but we are going to break the stigma one conversation at a time. I'll holler at you next time.